What's up, y'all? It's your host, Syd, and welcome back to another episode of Cooler Talk. I'm so excited that you're joining me today and so many dope women this season as we transparently inspire and empower through conversations about womanhood, careers, relationships, and all of life's experiences. Joining me today at the Cooler is my good friend Chelsey, also known as Cheese. We go way, way back to high school, from the hallways all the way to the marching band trips in the marching band room. And we've been glued together ever since. Chelsey is one of those friends. I think we all have that friend that is like that multifaceted and multi-talented creative. So she is a marketer by day, but a photographer, a music lover, a style girly. Like, I was just telling Chelsey, like, one of the things I remember about her from high school is like she was kind of like that pioneer for our little community, like in the music world. If it was a new artist, new songs, new tracks, you found out through Chelsey through Twitter. Like, that was her. So I'm so glad that I have her here today at the Cooler, and that the universe was like, I don't know, 3 years ago, was like, gone and moved to Dallas, Chelsey. So got me a local sister girl. But Chelsey, thanks so much for being here today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hey girl, hey. So I'm Chelsey, aka Cheese, but thank you for having me. I love here. Happy to be here, But yeah, so I am, like Syd said, a marketer by day, photographer, music extraordinaire by night in the deep shadows. But just out here doing an everyday creative girl life and trying to navigate this crazy, crazy world. But taking it one day at a time. So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start with the career. Let's start with marketing. I remember in high school, I don't know what the program was called, but we were in some program where we got to like tour news stations. It was almost like a mini internship thing that we did. And it was like me, you, BB, who's going to be on the season later. I think Darnisha was in it. Darnisha was on last season. And I feel like that was our first little like nudge into like the career experience of what marketing, journalism, PR, broadcast, all of that looked like. And we all literally took a different piece of that and went one way or the other with it. So when did you know that marketing was going to be like your thing, or like what, made you kind of go down that path?
So it's funny that you say that. When I was trying to think back, like, dang, it's been a long time. Like, how did I even figure out I wanted to do it? But the program was called Explorer Post, and it was a program through the Boy Scouts of America. Shout out to Barbara Foley. I'm still connected with her on Facebook. What? Like, I
just say her name. I'm like, yeah.
That's exactly who she was. Like, it's the fact that you said, like, yo, we used to be at all of these like news stations, and I remember like going to Savannah Morning News. But I do remember one trip we took to Savannah State. And that's when I knew, okay, like, it's something I want to do with this, but I don't know exactly what it is. And so I want to say, even dating back to like high school, when we were like, a lot of us were like yearbook staff. And I was like editor our senior year. And so I was like, I like this. Like, I don't know what it is, but I like the photography aspect of it. I love going out and meeting the students. I love knowing what's going on. What are all the clubs doing? Covering our senior year, because we were a pretty close knit group of like seniors. Like, our class was close. So either way, when I got involved in yearbook, and again, like being editor, so I had to, of course, go through and just make sure like things were lined right, things were laid out right. Everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing. So not only was it a chance to kind of showcase my skills, but the skills of my team, and then also like leadership. Like, you never really know what kind of leadership skills those are kind of creating too. So then from there, and then being in that program in high school, the Explorer Post program, we went to that one trip at Savannah State. And I remember them saying, like, oh, y'all didn't know Savannah State and UGA are the only two like accredited mass comm programs in the state of Georgia. I was like big on like not going to SSU. Yeah. But that pretty much told me, because they were accredited programs. And I had never really thought about UGA. Shout out to you and your team. But I never really known about UGA, to be quite honest with you. Like, I mean, I knew it existed, but I didn't really know about the school. But I knew Savannah State because my parents went there.
Yep.
Like my mom, my
aunties,
everybody went there.
Everybody went to state.
So when you grew up there and you grew up around homecomings, and it was like, okay, well, I do know this school. You know, why not at this point?
Yeah.
But then, like, my first year there, I hated it. Like, I was like, because I didn't want to go there at first, you know. So I said, Chelsey, you either are gonna fly, you know, sink or swim, basically. And I was like, you're gonna have to swim because you're gonna have to make the best of this decision. And I think from there, it kind of just took off. I was like, okay, let me get involved because I wasn't staying on campus. So I wasn't really having like the full like experience. But I'm like, let me get involved. Let me see what's going on. So I got involved in like campus activities and, you know, just wanting to see what the campus culture was about outside of like not living there. Because I felt like I was living like two different lives. On top of working like 3 different jobs, you know, so it was like, it was a lot.
Living like your normal life and you just was taking classes somewhere else. Because I feel like that's kind of like part of that transition when you do go to college, like in your hometown. It's like your parents still there, your friends still there, you know, so it's just like all you did was graduate and like now I'm taking some classes somewhere else if you don't live on campus.
That's exactly how it felt because of course a lot of us from Jenkins went to Savannah State. Like a good group of us, and it was like, okay, I love them, I love y'all, I do, but I got to meet some more people, you know, like I do have to meet some new people. I have to start connecting with the people that are in my major because none of us were really like the same major either. Like even Arnisha, she started out at Kennesaw. Before, you know, I don't know why I remember that, but I just remember her like not starting that state. But she started out at Kennesaw and then came, you know, like, but stuff like that. It was like, I gotta connect and meet with people that are like in my major because I have to see this through. You know, I don't want to. I just didn't want to major in something and then not work in it. Like I couldn't, for the life of me, I couldn't fathom like paying for, you know, that education and not using it. You know, and I know everyone's not that fortunate, but I was like, nah, because you're talking about 4 years, 3 summers. Like I never took a break. I went to school straight through. Like I was trying to graduate early, honestly. Like that's how much I wanted to go ahead and like finish up these classes. But you never really think about what that really means, you know. And then I had like an internship my senior year. It was a PR and communications internship for Savannah Chatham Casa. And so that kind of spearheaded my career too into like, okay, not only do I want to work in like marketing, like PR and advertising, but I, for the last 10 years, been doing it on a nonprofit scale. And so that, you know, kind of gets into like the part of the marketing that people don't see, you know, like, because people don't always think like, oh, they need marketing or, oh, they need social media. Like every business needs this. Like every business, every company, if you don't have a good marketing or communications team, it just doesn't work that way, you know. Like, and I think that's what the misconception about a lot of it is, because for years I had friends who probably didn't even know I was doing. I probably still have friends who don't know what I'm doing. So you know, even this, you know, us getting here and recording, they're gonna be like, Chelsey, you do that, or you know how to do that, you know, like, but they genuinely, like, I genuinely have friends who probably think I told them my thumbs and party at night, you know. But at the same time, like, no, it's a lot of hard work that goes into this, and to be consistent and not just doing it on a scale of, oh, this is my 9 to 5, but then also doing it outside work and volunteer work and sorority work. We want to get into that, you know, but it's literally like, if it's something that you like to do, you're just gonna do it. And that's just, you know, long story short, from start to finish, how we got there.
Not like, but that's what I feel like is something that's kind of always been true to you. Like, just how you say, you went to Savannah State, but that's not really where you wanted to go. That was the same thing with me for UGA. Like, I didn't really want to go there. I know for a fact I did not want to stay in Savannah, but most importantly, I didn't want to stay in the state of Georgia. I wanted to go to University of Central Florida, but that out of state tuition was like, my parents like, hell nah. And I went to UGA on like a tour, like maybe 2 or 3 times. And every time we went, it rained. And I hated it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the school. I was like, I don't want to go here. But I wound up getting, you know, a lot of great like scholarship money and got hope. And it was like, well, like you can kind of go here like for free and whatever. So ultimately, like just like you wind up loving SSU, I wind up loving UGA. And like something about you, I feel like whether it was band, just like you said, like you were still working jobs their first year, like when you get into it, you stay committed to it. Like, and that has been true to you, like to the things that you do, but also to the relationships that you have. And so you talk about like being a marketer and those misconceptions of like people just think like, oh, well, you know, when we were coming out, it was more so like a nice to have, you know, like a nice to have a Facebook or a Twitter and now it's to this day, you have to have these things. You don't have to be on all the platforms, but you have to have it. So how do you feel like you've been able to kind of like separate with the companies you work for? Because like you mentioned, a lot of nonprofits, church, like you work for a lot of organizations where the marketing budget team and none of that ain't even about to be at the top of the totem pole. So how have you like worked through that?
Oh man. And then, you know, to add to, I worked for a lot of companies that I can't talk about a lot of the work that I do.
Yes.
So that's always been kind of interesting. And that's probably half the reason why people probably don't be like, what do you do? But I can't truly talk about a lot of this stuff only because like even when I was working for DFAS and you know, that's working with very vulnerable population. And you know, a lot of people when they found out like I was working for DFAS and I was there for 5 years, you know, 5-6 years. And I came in as like a coordinator. And then I ended up being like a communications manager, like after COVID. And so that kind of just basically spearheaded like the entire thing. And I was like, okay, well, you know, if you can start from here and go to there, but you still really can't talk about, you know, the work that you do, you know, so like, how do you
market and tell like, yeah.
And so it was really, because I was working more so like in foster care and adoption. And sometimes I was around like kids and, you know, it wasn't like I could share about them. Couldn't really talk about like the different things that we did, but I mean, we did a lot. And just working in that space too, not even just from like the marketing communication standpoint, but having to like lead teams across the states was new for me. And it's something that, you know, I started that job at 23, you know, so like leading these teams and them trusting me and realizing that I'm the subject matter expert in this position, you know, and also holding positions that no one else has ever held, you know, so that I think that was like the cool thing about kind of like the route I took in the nonprofit space, because a lot of the positions I held, people never held. Some of them were created just for me and just sort of kind of, you know, you create the things based on what you know, but not forgetting that you're still learning at the same time. And I think that's the cool part about being able to kind of create these positions like from the ground up, basically.
Yep. I think that's like too, like just when we came out in like graduating college with social media having been so new, I think most of the roles for as long as we stay in this industry, you know, going past 10 years, at 10 years, over 10 years now, like a lot of the roles that we've had didn't exist before. So you was not only, you know, trying to teach a company and the people you work with like how something's supposed to go, but you was also inventing it at the same time. So you had like this third layer of challenge and hurdle because you were working for organizations where, okay, like I can't tell the story about, you know, this kid, or I can't show faces of, you know, from this event. So like, that's where your whole like creative genius had to, you know, like kind of shine through and come in. And I think that's when you were saying like about misconceptions of marketing. I think you know, some roles, whether it's nurse, teacher, firefighter, whatever, like you're hired to do a specific thing. That job, you know, is trained, or there's a curriculum, or there's certifications or whatever. But in creative spaces like mass comm and marketing and journal, like there's no rubric.
There's no, you asking for clarity, there is none. It doesn't exist. Like there's literally no rules. You know, like, yes, you have branding guidelines and you have tone and voice and style of writing. You know, there are those rules, like the fundamentals and the mechanics of it all. But in the creative space, there are genuinely no rules. You know, like, and so trying to navigate that like every day. And then you're always met up against challenges. And my biggest challenge was always that creativity was a matter of opinion. You know, so it's sort of like, yeah, you don't like it, but I do. Or I don't like it, but you do. You know, and it's as simple as but why don't you like it? Because I'm one of them. I'm gonna ask you why.
Why we need to make this logo bigger? Why we need to
like, how did we get here? Like, I'm gonna ask, like, and that's the thing about me. Like, anybody that's ever worked with me, I'm going to ask. I'm gonna ask why you don't like something, or okay, well, how would you fix it? And see, that's when we start getting into the nitty gritty, you know, because I had this, I wouldn't necessarily call him like a mentor, but he was like our advisor for one of our campus organizations. And he always said that, you know, you don't present a problem without a solution. I mean, you hadn't really thought about it. I mean, it's not really a problem. You're probably just trying to nitpick anyway, you know, but how do you, if you can't truly like communicate to me or explain to me why you don't like something, it's going to be hard for me to give in to what it is that you're trying to persuade me to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that was some of the challenges that I used to work in, especially when it comes to different audiences, you know, because especially even when you're working in foster care, and lo and behold, I think this is also like Pride Month, and so that was another thing. That was also like one of the challenges, just to give an example, of like communication when it came to same-sex parents and adoption and foster care in Georgia. You know, we can get into that whole thing, but that I'm just giving examples like that, and being in the state of Georgia and working, you know, DFACE is a state agency. You know, it's one of those state agencies that's going to be around forever. You know, it's been around before we were, but also working there came with a negative connotation, you know, because in our community, you know, I don't want to say they're known for like snatching kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate to say that, but
that's how our community, like, that's what you know of them.
Right. Yep. But they were so much more than that. You know, I'm also providing food stamps when you need them. Well, I'm not in my job, but I'm just saying as the organization overall, like it's for the betterment of the community. Now, I'm not saying, you know, just depending on what you may need it, but it is more than just children. It's more than just food stamps. It's literally a community organization. It's literally family and children's services, like family first, you know? And that's the part that was just always so hard to be like, no, well, that's just not what we do. So after a while, I really just stopped, like, my, you know, people, I'd be like, no, I don't work there. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you know, I wouldn't tell people, because I'm like, I constantly trying to have that conversation with somebody that's just not getting it. Is like, I'm not about to explain it to you no more than me trying to explain something else to somebody I work with. Like, I'm not
that's kind of like
I know the difference I'm making. Like, we're honoring parents from across the state and hosting events with, like, where the governor is the speaker. You know, like, I mean, doing some pretty big shit, you know, like, but I'm like, dog, like,
but nobody would know that. And that was your job. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, that was your job, to try to raise awareness about all the things that organization was. And I think that was similar, like when I transitioned from like the advertising agency side and started in aviation, and people, whenever I would say like, oh, like, you know, I'm a social media director for X airport, you'd be like, oh, American, oh, Southwest, no, the airport, like not the airline, you know, like, yeah, I have to work with them and their social teams too, but no, the airport, because people just don't, literally, they don't consider how many, and I don't even want to say brands, but just things that exist out there that need marketing assistant. Like, it's almost anything. And I think that's something why, like, being as like kind of multifaceted and hyphenated in the creative and art spaces we've always been, that's why that's one thing that drew us to being marketers, is because this is a job that you don't learn it for a specific location or skill set or industry. You can take these skills and apply it to any industry. So like, you're working, you know, at DFAX and I'm at an airport and we both like, that's just wow. Like, that picture alone. So switching gears a bit into young Chelsey, like, who were some of your biggest impacts or influences growing up in your life?
Young Cheese. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Man, I would have to say like my family, but individually, right? Because I come from a very well blended family. You know, my parents were divorced when I was younger. I have 6 siblings, you know, and none of me or my siblings share the same parent. If that makes sense. So, well, the same set of parents. But we're all, you know, really cool. We're close. I love my sisters to death, and we're all girls, you know, so that's cool.
That's crazy.
And we all do different things, you know. So like, I work in marketing and communications. I have a sister who's a chemist, you know. I have a sister who's a lawyer. I have one that does hair and is studying to become a nurse. Like, you know, like, we all, like, you know, my dad ought to be very proud. But we're all, you know, we're all uniquely us. So, you know, outside of my family, but like my grandparents, truly, and my mom and my dad, like, even on that scale of, I always knew the definition of hard work. But I always knew, you know, I always knew about wanting just to be successful and wanting to provide and making sure that I had like the things that I need. I had a roof over my head, you know, just sometimes the bare necessities is just like, I got a roof over my head, I got food in my belly, I got clothes on my back. And that we don't take the time to just be like, you know, thank you for everything. But my grandparents truly, my dad was my granddad, excuse me, he was an electrician for Savannah Electric. We're going to throw it back a little bit. Before it was Georgia Power. Georgia Power. And my grandma worked at Memorial. But, you know, my grandparents, I love them to death. Like, they are everything a girl could wish for, you know. And then I also grew up too, still with like, up until I was at least like 29, 30-ish, I still had like 3 great grandparents, you know. So being fortunate like that, and being blessed to have that much family around, it's just, when you think about these people, you just assume they're going to be around forever. You know, like, you're not really thinking,
talk about it,
one day they might have to go, you know. So any time that you get to spend with them, or any time that you get to talk to them, or just shoot the breeze, as one would say, you know, whenever I go home, last time I was home, I was just me and my grandma on the porch chilling, my dad's mom. But, you know, I would say they all individually, uniquely play influencer, if that makes sense. They all worked hard, like, on top of having jobs, they came and picked us up and took us where we needed to go. You know, they fed us. They were involved.
You had sick days. You were on their couch.
Yes.
With the soup and the Price is Right and the saltines and the ginger.
The Price is Right for me. It's all the game shows. Oh my God. Not The Price is Right. The Young and the Restless. I mean,
Bold and Beautiful.
Oh my goodness. Up in there with no air. Like, it's 95 degrees. You know, like, with
Why
no
that goes back to the memes where it's like we all grew up the same. Like I've been watching the Black Twitter series on Hulu.
Yes.
And that hashtag growing up black, like that's literally still like we'll bring up something. It's like, yeah, why wasn't no air in my great grandma's house? And you said your great grandma
like they was in the same building. Where they was at? They was like,
we all grew up the same. We all grew up the same.
Why we out here sweating? Why can't I drink with my food? Like, I'm confused. You know, like
yes, girl. My grandma, you had to finish your food first, then you could get your drink.
I was like, okay, this don't make no sense to me. But that also feeds into like I know me as an adult why I'm questioning certain.
That had to be a Savannah thing at some point. Like, because where did that come from? When I remember the first time telling Antonio that, and he was like, "What?" He was like, "So y'all just used to eat with a dry mouth, and then so yeah, grandma, the drink was like the dessert. Like you were afforded a drink after you finished your meal."
Yeah,
it's absurd.
Yeah, but I didn't realize we were all growing up like that. But like, no, like you need to eat all this food. Like, I mean, not like a sprinkle of food. Like it's a plate.
Yeah, all your food. To this day, I literally like me drinking something. I'll get like the baby kitty cups. Like that's all I drink. And like you don't drink it. I'm like, this is all I want. And I think it's just like post trauma / byproduct of by the time I used to finish my food, like I would just have that look. It's like I can't drink big cups of stuff. Like it's like fabricated in me, and that's freaking crazy. That you also have
a medium or large. Medium. And matter of fact, can you make it small?
Make it small because the medium is extra large. But no, I echo you for sure on the you know, you grew up, and I think it's another hashtag growing up black just because a lot of us, we grew up very close to our families. You know, you grow up as an adult and you start to learn who is who and who really was about what. And that's why mama and daddy, you know, you start to learn more about your family. But as a kid, family was just family. It didn't matter. You didn't know everything that was going on. And we're even starting to have, especially now having Braylon, like we're even starting to have, you know, our own, I guess, perspectives of damn, like it's people, you know, just recently, but like it's somebody that has known her, that we've known our entire lives, like at least for Antonio, and Braylon will never know them. You know, this person knew you, has brought you things, it's pictures of y'all, and they knew you before they left this earth, but you will never know them. And it is insane. It is insane. Or just even people that you may have, you know, lost in your family or friends a while ago before we had a kid, and we'll still talk about those people and she will never know them. It'll always just be like who is that to her? And it's just so weird. Like it's kind of like you live this double life. Like you have a kid who you're raising, and you know, as they get older, like they don't know these people, but it's just like double lives, and it's a weird feeling. But she's, you know, the same. She's fortunate. She has 3 great grandparents, you know, still alive. And it's just like you said, once we in our, you know, early 30s, we understand, you know, life is gone life. Unfortunately, at some point, death is gone death. And it's always scary now having her and being like, you might not know this person. Like, that's absurd. Like, you don't look fast forward their life, but you're like, can you be like 10 already? So where you can remember everybody that I know? Thank you. Like,
and I want you to know the people that I know too. Exactly. You know, like even a couple, like 3 of my other sisters, their mom, like I remember, and when you say like influence, just family like that, and that's why I say I always tell people like we're a well blended family, but because we are, you know, because we all pretty much get along, and that's rarity among families like that, you know, like, and I mean, like, even with their mom, like, I remember there were times, you know, in my adolescent days, like me and my mother, sometimes we would get into it, and I would go talk to her, you know, crazy. And so
blended.
No facts, like
y'all blended.
Like, I don't get it sometimes, like. I just don't understand, you know, like we just keep doing like this. Like, granted, I love my mom and we have like the best relationship, but when I was growing up, maybe I was just very hard headed, and
we always that with our mama.
With all of us. And I remember she said something to me, and she was like, "Chelsey, you have to understand, like, this is, her having you was like her first time being a mom too, and you have to kind of give grace sometimes, and realize, she kind of just taking it one day too, and like from then on, I kind of had to change my perspective and like how I looked at her. Like, yes, that's my mom, but she don't owe me nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to love her for who she is, and although like, yes, she's my mom and the provider and these things, but I can still do my part as the child and not have to give her so much of a hard time like I was doing. Like, I can change some of my behavior. Like, I don't have to have an attitude about everything. Like, let me figure out. And now, since now Brazen is here, their youngest one. And so I'm like, okay, what can I do to help versus hinder? And I think from then on, it was like, okay, now I understand this life cycle.
Life felt easy.
Like, it's making more sense to me now. Not that it didn't before, but, now it's like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to do my part. At the same time, I'm still going to live my life. But let me not be so much let me try not to be so much of a burden. Let me try to help. Let me do better. Like, let me do better. Like, I don't have to be this way. We don't have to get into it all the time. Like, we don't have to be this way. But mind you, that's advice coming from, like, my sister's mom. Yes. So it's like, like, anybody in my family, I'm pretty much like, okay, let me pick up the phone. Like, let me see what they think. Like, even with my grandma, I would have sometimes like some work issues, and I would call my grandma, and she would help me talk. She would help talk me through it. Coming from her experience. So her answers were always interesting, just because of the generation that she's from and what they knew as work and keeping a job and setting up for retirement and those sort of things. Like, she would always tell me like, well, Chelsey, she's the boss. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But like,
and that, I mean,
for a second,
but even you like in that age to be able to swallow that type of pill of maturity, girl, some people don't ever get close.
Listen.
To like, oh, let me pause and think about my mama first. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a kid, like, that's just not really a mindset. So that just goes to show like the community, not just even, at large, but the community of women specifically that you had around you. That was like, look, I'm gonna tell you like it is. Cause I've been in mama's shoes, I've been in your shoes. And that's a fortunate place, to have like that community around you, like even through adulthood too.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna switch gears into our pour session. Take a quick break from our interview questions, and we're gonna answer 2 questions that are just like off the wall. So my first question for you, Chels, is I know you've been a music girly like since forever. So who won the beef, Kendrick or Drake? Like, I need to know your POV.
It's funny because I haven't been asked this question yet.
I'm like, reporting live.
You heard it here first. She thinks. No. So I was really team Drake and Kendrick. But because I for me, it's the excitement of it all, because I remember I was sitting in here and I remember Drake dropped one of his, because for right now I can't think of like the order, right? Yeah. But I remember Drake dropped a track, and I was like, yo, and I think it was late, and I was like, I got in the shower, and I said, yo, if Kendrick was a real one, he'd drop another track before the night over with, right? Like, so under an hour, it had to be no more than like 2 hours.
30 minutes, yeah.
Kendrick dropped that track. Like, I went in the shower, got out, I came back, and I was like, yo, Kendrick just dropped a track. I was like, oh, snap, you know, so, like, me and, like, other music enthusiasts, like, we sending it to each other, like, back and forth. I think it's just excitement. It's just the excitement. It's something that's happening in hip hop, you know, or in music. Not to say like beef is exciting,
yeah,
but the creativity of it all for me is what I truly
the
enjoy.
way they drop it, the album cover,
man. The visuals, like Drake.
Yeah,
that. Like, where you find that?
The Good Kid, Mad City, man, it sent me. Like, look, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there. I was Team Kendrick. Like, I think he took the cake, but the Good Kid, Mad City, man. I'm like, bro, where did you
drove it through the city? Cause y'all went and found that somewhere. Drove it to
that was on point.
Impound lot. It like just demolished the van. Like it wasn't even about what Drake was saying on that.
Yep. Nope.
So if I had to choose, like I would give it to like lyrically, like Kendrick just body. Like
my second session question: if you could rid one social platform, which one got to go? Which one you getting rid of?
I would probably get rid of. Honestly, right now, I would probably get rid of LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
And I just say right now because, LinkedIn, I'm like, yo, y'all be talking about y'all got jobs and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, what do these people be talking about on here for real? Like, how real is this stuff? And first of all, why is all of this showing up on my feed? And I don't even follow half of these people. Like, I'm just like,
that suggested for you algorithm is going crazy. Nasty work on all these platforms. Suggested for you. Back into the last two questions. So we talked about Young Chelsey. We talked about influences. We talked about, you know, your journey through marketing. What does your ultimate self look like? Like Chelsea's living her best life. It's her version of I made it, I'm good. Like, what does that look like?
Honestly, it looks like I made it and I'm good. But no, it looks like I'm good. That I'm still more adult Chelsey, of course, but I am still the same carefree, you know, kind of free spirited Chelsey. You know, it looks like entrepreneur Chelsey. It looks like one day mom Chelsey, one day wife Chelsey, you know, like, but still trusted, like pioneer, you know, that's what like my ultimate self looks like a pioneer in this industry, like still breaking barriers, still advocating for those who, you know, can't advocate for themselves. Still definitely discovering new music, but definitely like a pioneer. More so, because now I'm kind of like in that transition phase of switching, like more from nonprofit to more entertainment stuff. Like that's a lot of the stuff, like festivals and things that I work in, more so in the volunteer space. But now I'm trying to make that more full time. I'm like, you know, like you can do this. Like you can do it. And I'm like, and I don't know why. I just kind of been having fun, you know, but sometimes you have to get your feet wet to see if that's really what you want. You know, and try it out. And I'm like, okay, you've been trying it for years. You know, you moved to Dallas, of course, which was a transition and getting used to that. But I'm like, you're here, like, let's go for it. You know, there's literally music everywhere. It's all over the coast, all over the world, you know, so, and I've been I've been venturing more into like just sounds and like different DJs and their mixes. And I love what like the DJ culture is doing now. And, you know, the way they're kind of taking over social media and producing their own events, you know, so it's
I could totally see you being like a manager for a DJ or set of DJs, like kind of like their own little like manager, not just for gigs, but like from like managing their social, managing their marketing, like making sure you're not just DJing, you know, Lil Ray Ray birthday party. Like, no, like you actually you need to be, you know, making sure that you're in the right lineups and the right audiences. Like, you're the person that would notice that.
Yeah. Cause like I just feel like the DJs, like, and I mean, it's probably a proven fact, but the DJs kind of set the tone. You know, you don't even follow sometimes just for the artist. Sometimes you'll go certain places just because somebody is DJing.
Yeah, and even in songs, like, think about like all they like call tags, like Metro Boomin, or like, like, they call tags, but do you follow Metro Boomin? No, you follow Drake. You know what I mean? But you're really vibing to the DJ.
Yeah, but I do follow like both of them. But
yeah, right. Yes,
and I feel like in order to be a good manager or whatever, what have you, you have to know each role. And I think that kind of somewhat leads into the misconceptions of like social media too. It's like you don't just work in social media. Like you have to know different roles. You have to know the production side. You have to know the journalism side. You have to know the broadcast side. Like you have to know the media sales side, the SEO side, like just data alone. There's so many different avenues of things that you have to know. And I feel like people don't really understand just the amount of having that knowledge and how it allows you to make certain decisions in just the social media aspect alone, or just in the marketing aspect. It's like, no, like you have to have a robust working knowledge and language about all of this. Like this
that reminds me of the advice that I know we recently shared it, but the advice of one of the guests this season, Marika, shared, and she was just like, lean into your expertise, but lean into the expertise of your client to make your work better. And just like you're saying, like, in order for you to be a great manager, director, leader, boss, team of anything, you can't just know what you know. You got to know what everybody else knows to an extent. You know what I mean? To be able to make everything better, to be able to understand how things work, to be able to empathize when things are not going the right way for somebody, or why they can't figure something out, like what may be a roadblock. So I totally see that for you. And I think that's perfect segue into last question of the interview, which is, if you could leave advice for a woman at the cooler, what would your advice be? Whether it's a woman looking to be in your space or your shoes, or just, general advice, like what advice would you leave?
There's this Dr. Seuss quote that I've always loved about being truer than true, but something about not truer than you, or something. For whatever reason, I can't even think of the actual words right now. But don't forget, like my number one piece of advice would just be like, don't forget to be your authentic self, because that's really what's going to carry you. You can know all the things in the world. You can be just as book smart, just as street smart as you want to be. All the degrees, all the accolades, but genuinely, who are you as a person is what's really going to carry you a long way. That would pretty much be my advice. Like, don't think you have to like switch up, because if people are going to rock with you the way that they're supposed to, they're going to care about you and your authentic self, and they're going to see like, okay, this girl, she okay. Like she all right.
Look, I don't put it past you. At this point, you done mentioned Barbara Foley. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like how you kicked your advice off when you just said, like, no truer words have been spoken. No, like when, you connect with somebody, if you're authentically like yourself and who you are, like it leaves a lasting impression. Like people can call it how they see it, call a spade, as they say, when you ain't you, and ultimately you don't drive or build or make lasting connections in that way. But that advice is raw and it's pure, and it literally speaks to like our friendship, but just like who you are as a person. So Chelsey, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being here, and for everybody that tuned in. Thank y'all so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.